You walked into a room, and within 3 seconds, before anyone had said a word, you knew something was wrong. You couldn't have explained it if someone had asked you. There was no obvious sign. The lighting was normal. The people were smiling. Nothing had been broken or rearranged. But your body went still in that particular way it goes still when something underneath the surface isn't right. And a quiet voice in the back of your mind said, "Leave," or "Stay alert," or "Don't trust her," or "This isn't what it looks like." And you ignored it because you couldn't justify it, because you didn't want to be the kind of person who acts on a feeling, because you had been taught your whole life that real decisions are made with logic and evidence and reasoning. What you were experiencing was none of those things. So you pushed through the discomfort. You smiled the way you were supposed to smile. You stayed in the room, and weeks or months later, when whatever was underneath finally came to the surface, you had the same thought you have every single time this happens to you. I knew the moment I walked in. Why didn't I listen? If that scene just landed somewhere uncomfortably familiar, I need you to stay with me. Because what happened to you in that room was not a flaw in your judgment. It was the highest form of judgment your brain is capable of, and you have been taught to override it your entire life. The story your culture tells you about intuition is almost completely wrong, and the wrongness of that story has cost you more than you realize. It has cost you trust in the most accurate instrument you have ever owned, which is the one inside your own body. And tonight I want to give it back to you. Let me start with what intuition actually is, because the word has been so badly misused that most people don't even know what it refers to anymore. Intuition is not magic. It is not psychic. It is not a hunch you pulled out of nowhere. It is not the opposite of thinking. Intuition is thinking, but it's a kind of thinking that happens so fast and so far below your conscious awareness that by the time the conclusion arrives in your mind, you don't have access to the steps that produced it. You only have access to the final result, and because the steps are invisible, the result feels mystical, which makes it easy for the rational part of your mind to dismiss. But the steps were real. They were just happening at a speed and a depth that your conscious mind isn't designed to witness. Here's what's actually going on when you have a gut feeling. Your brain is processing thousands of pieces of information every second that your conscious mind never sees. The micro-expressions on someone's face that flickered for less than a quarter of a second. The slight tightness in their voice that didn't match the words they were saying. The way the air in a room feels when two people who are pretending to like each other are actually in the middle of a silent argument. The almost imperceptible mismatch between somebody's posture and their tone. The pattern in a situation that resembles a pattern from another situation you experienced years ago and have long since forgotten consciously, but which is still stored in the deeper layers of your memory. All of this data is being collected continuously, and your brain is comparing it against everything else it has ever learned, and it's doing this in milliseconds, and the result of this enormous, lightning-fast, mostly invisible computation gets handed up to your conscious mind in the form of a feeling, not a thought, a feeling. Because the conscious mind would take far too long to walk through all the data, so the body gives you the conclusion in the only language fast enough to deliver it in time, which is the language of sensation. This is why intuition feels physical. The tightness in your chest, the sinking in your stomach, the hair lifting on your arms, the sudden urge to leave a room, the strange pull towards someone you've barely met. These are not random body events. These are translations. Your nervous system is translating an enormous amount of subconscious processing into the only language your conscious mind can receive in a hurry. And the people who learn to listen to those translations have access to an intelligence that the people who only trust logic will never have. Not because they're smarter, because they're hearing more channels at once. There's an entire field of research on this, and the findings are remarkable enough that they should have changed the way we talk about intuition decades ago. Studies on what psychologists call expert intuition have shown that experienced firefighters can sense when a building is about to collapse seconds before they consciously know why. Experienced nurses can tell when a patient is about to deteriorate before any of the monitors show it. Experienced chess masters can look at a board and immediately know which move is right without having to calculate through the alternatives. In every one of these cases, the person could not articulate in the moment how they knew. They just knew. And they knew because their brain had absorbed thousands of patterns over years of attention, and those patterns were now being recognized faster than language could keep up with. The intuition wasn't supernatural. It was the residue of years of learning, finally working at full speed. But here's the part that almost nobody talks about. You don't have to be a firefighter or a chess master to have access to this. Every human being is running this kind of pattern recognition all the time, on the subjects that matter most to them. If you've spent 30 years being around people, you have an enormous database on people. You have seen thousands of faces, you have witnessed thousands of micro-betrayals and micro-kindnesses. You have cataloged, without ever meaning to, what trustworthiness looks like and what dishonesty looks like and what someone looks like when they're saying one thing and meaning something else. All of that data is in you. It's been quietly accumulating for as long as you've been alive. And when you walk into a room and feel that something is off, your brain isn't pulling that feeling out of nowhere. It's pulling it out of the deepest archive you own, which is the archive of every human moment you've ever lived through, processed at a speed your conscious mind cannot match. The reason most people don't trust this is that it doesn't come with an explanation attached. And we have been trained, especially in the last 100 years or so, to believe that conclusions without explanations are not real conclusions. We've been told that if you can't show your work, you don't actually know the answer. We've been told that the only valid kind of knowing is the kind you can defend in a conversation, justify in a meeting, prove with a chart. And in some contexts, that's true. There are things in life that genuinely require step-by-step reasoning, evidence, double-checking, and slow analysis. Building a bridge is one of them. Writing a contract is one of them. Diagnosing a complicated medical condition with overlapping symptoms is one of them. But most of the decisions you actually make in your life are not like building bridges. Most of the decisions you actually make are about people and situations and timing and trust. And the slow, analytical mind is not the right tool for those decisions because the variables involved are too numerous and too subtle for conscious thought to track. The tool that's actually good at those decisions is the one you've been taught to ignore. And the cost of ignoring it has been higher than most people realize. Look back at the moments in your life that you most regret. Not the small ones, the big ones, the relationship you stayed in too long, the job you should have left 2 years before you finally did, the friend you trusted who turned out to be exactly what your gut had been quietly telling you they were. The opportunity you walked away from because it didn't make sense on paper, even though something in you was leaning toward it. In almost every case, if you're honest with yourself, you knew. Some part of you knew. The information was there from the beginning. You just didn't act on it because you couldn't explain it, and the part of you that demands explanations was louder than the part of you that already had the answer. That's the tragedy of an overtrained rational mind. It doesn't make you smarter. It makes you slower. It makes you spend years justifying things your body recognized in the first 30 seconds. And the people around you who seem to make wise decisions effortlessly, the ones who somehow always know which person to walk away from and which opportunity to take and which red flag to take seriously, they are not smarter than you. They have just stopped requiring their gut feelings to come with footnotes before they're allowed to act on them. Now, I want to be careful here, because I'm not telling you to abandon thinking. That would be its own kind of mistake. There is a version of trusting your gut that is actually just trusting your fear, or your bias, or your wishful thinking, or your trauma. And those are not the same thing as intuition. Real intuition has a particular quality to it, and once you learn to recognize the quality, you stop confusing it with the noise. Intuition is calm, even when the message it's delivering is urgent. Fear is loud and panicky. Intuition is steady. It's not trying to convince you, it's just telling you. Bias is selective and tells you what you want to hear. Intuition is often telling you what you don't want to hear, which is part of how you can recognize that it's real. Wishful thinking is warm and seductive and pulls you towards something that feels good in the moment. Intuition is sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes inconvenient, sometimes cuts directly across the thing you wish you could believe. The difference between intuition and the other inner voices is that intuition doesn't have an agenda. It's not trying to protect you from feelings, it's just reporting what it's seen. That's why developing your relationship with your intuition involves learning to tell the voices apart. The voice that says, "Don't go to that party because they might not like you," is not intuition. That's anxiety. The voice that says, "Don't go to that party because something underneath your usual hesitation is telling you to stay home tonight, even though there's no reason to," is intuition. They feel different. Anxiety feels constricting. Intuition feels clear. Anxiety speaks in warnings. Intuition often speaks in something more like a pull or a quiet no. The more time you spend listening, the easier the difference becomes. There's a process to developing this, and it's worth describing because almost nobody is taught it. The first step is the simplest and the hardest. You have to start noticing the gut feelings as they happen, instead of overriding them so quickly that you don't even register that they were there. Most people who have lost touch with their intuition didn't lose it because it stopped working. They lost it because they trained themselves to ignore it so quickly and so reliably that it stopped bothering to send signals as loudly as it used to. Your nervous system gives up on you eventually if you never listen. So the first thing you have to do is start paying attention again. When you walk into a room, notice what your body is doing. When you meet someone new, notice the first impression that flickered through you in the first 3 seconds before your manners caught up. When you're considering a decision, notice which option makes your chest open and which one makes it close. None of this means you have to act on every signal. It just means you have to start receiving them again. The receiving has to come before the trusting. The second step is harder, and it involves a kind of bravery that nobody warns you about. Once you start receiving the signals, you have to start honoring at least some of them, even when you can't explain them, even when other people would think you're being irrational. This is terrifying for a lot of people, because they have spent their whole lives needing other people's approval for their decisions. And intuition is not a thing you can defend in a conversation. You cannot stand in front of a room of skeptical people and explain why your gut said don't take this job and have them all nod along. They will want reasons. You will not have reasons. You will only have a knowing. And you will have to decide whether the knowing is enough. The first few times you honor an intuition you can't justify, you will feel exposed and slightly ridiculous. But here's what happens over time. The intuitions that you honored start to vindicate themselves. You start to look back and realize that the unexplained no was right. The unexplained pull toward the strange opportunity was right. The unexplained sense that the new friend was going to matter was right. And as the track record builds, the trust builds with it, and the second guessing starts to fade. The third step is the deepest one, and it takes the longest to build. You have to develop a relationship with the part of yourself that knows things you don't consciously know. You have to start treating that part as an ally instead of a glitch. You have to stop apologizing for it, stop hiding it from people who would mock it, stop dismissing it the moment its conclusions don't match what your slower mind would prefer. And as you do this, something starts to change inside you that's hard to describe to people who have never experienced it. The constant low-grade anxiety of trying to think your way through every decision starts to ease. because you are no longer carrying the entire weight of every choice in the front of your conscious mind. You start to feel held by your own inner wisdom instead of feeling alone with your incomplete information. You start to trust yourself in a way that doesn't depend on having all the answers, because you finally understand that having all the answers was never the point. You don't need all the answers. You need to be in a working relationship with the part of you that has access to more information than you can consciously process. And once you have that relationship, life starts to feel less like a series of impossible calculations and more like a conversation between you and a deeper knowing that has been with you the whole time. There's one more thing I want to say, and I want you to hear it carefully, because it might be the most important part of all of this. The people who pay the highest price for ignoring their intuition are usually people who have been told their whole lives that their feelings were wrong. Maybe they grew up in a family where their perceptions were dismissed. Maybe they were the child who said something feels off and the adults around them said, "You're imagining things. You're being dramatic. Stop making things up." Maybe they were taught that their sensitivity was an inconvenience to other people, and so they learned to suppress the signals coming from inside their own body in order to keep the peace outside of it. If that was you, I want you to understand something. The intuition you have today is the same intuition you had when you were a child being told you were imagining things. And the times you noticed the truth that the adults didn't want you to notice were not flukes. You were not being dramatic. You were perceiving accurately, and you were being trained to distrust your own accurate perception. And the cost of that training has followed you into adulthood in the form of decisions you keep making against the quiet voice that has been right about you the whole time. The work of trusting your intuition for people like that is not really about decision-making. It's about reclaiming a part of yourself that was stolen a long time ago by people who needed you to doubt yourself in order to control you. Every time you honor a gut feeling now, you're returning a small piece of that stolen self back to where it belongs. Every time you act on a knowing that you cannot explain, you're telling the child inside you that the things she sensed were real. You're telling her, finally, that she was not crazy, that she was not too sensitive, that she was perceiving the truth, and the world around her was lying to her, and now she gets to live in a body that listens to her instead of one that overrides her. That kind of healing doesn't come from logic. It comes from the slow, patient practice of letting your inner knowing matter again. So the next time you walk into a room and something inside you goes still, I want you to pause. Just pause. You don't have to make a dramatic decision. You don't have to flee. You just have to acknowledge the signal. You have to say, internally, I hear you. I'm not going to dismiss you this time. And you're going to be amazed at what changes, slowly, in the months and years that follow, when you stop arguing with the part of yourself that has been trying to take care of you all along. Your gut is not a glitch in your reasoning. Your gut is a different kind of reasoning. It's the kind that uses every piece of information you've ever absorbed, processed at the speed only the body can manage, and delivered in a language that doesn't require explanation because it was never meant to be debated. It was meant to be trusted, and the people who learn to trust it don't become irrational. They become something rarer than rationale. They become wise. And wisdom, in the end, is not the absence of thinking. It's the harmony between the thinking you can see and the knowing you can feel, working together in the quiet way they were always supposed to work. You have known things your whole life that you were not allowed to admit you knew. Tonight, maybe for the first time, you are allowed.